Hi everyone, I'm Lynette Schaefer, and in this video, I will deep dive into LED lamp solutions. So in the previous videos, I discussed the difference between the types of traditional light sources. Of course, that included, incandescents and halogens and compact fluorescents and HIDs and so forth. Well, I'm going to be showing you in this video how easy it is to replace these traditional light sources with an LED lamp solution. And also, just as a reminder before we dig into this, all LEDs consist of optics, chips, heat sink. They do require a driver or a circuit board or something that will regulate the voltage. And of course, they have a housing too. Now, I do realize that some LED replacement lamps can work on existing ballast, which we will deep dive into a little bit later on in this video. So an LED retrofit lamp is always a simple and easy solution because LED retrofit lamps offer the same form, fit, and function of traditional lamps, but with all the benefits of LED technology. And that means replacing traditional LED increases reliability and life and energy efficiency and sustainability while reducing maintenance costs and energy bills. Now, of course, EiKO does offer a huge line of LED retrofit lamps that includes miniature lamps, PAR and MRAs and BRs and plugins and HIDs and linears, and they all are available in a wide array of wattages and lumen packages and color temperatures. And these are a great solution for residential and commercial and industrial applications. But there are a few things to understand before screwing that LED lamp or plugging that LED lamp into a socket. You're going to learn all about it here very soon. So let's get started with miniature lamps. So these are usually small and require relatively little power and are used in a variety of indicator lights, such as panels for equipment, automotive, and electronics. These small lamps come in many shapes and many base types and voltages. Now, with miniature lamps, when they were first introduced, the majority of them were incandescent filaments. And of course, those incandescent filaments, any type of vibration would make them weak and break. So then, of course, a lot of people were replacing those with halogen miniature lamps because they had that stronger filament. And now, of course, people are starting to replace these with LED technology, which offers even longer lamp life and, of course, greater efficiencies. Now, the biggest guide when recommending a miniature lamp solution or replacement is to confirm that the replacement will fit. That's a big one. You also have to, like in any case, confirm the voltage, the wattage, the base, and also the shape. Now, as we mentioned in previous trainings, incandescent lamps have a glass enclosure containing a filament. We also mentioned that halogen lamps last longer than incandescent lamps. They are easily dimmable and there's no ballast. However, this is not the case with LED lamps. All LED lamps, as I mentioned, have a driver, or in some cases, maybe they can utilize the existing fluorescent ballast. However, they have to have some kind of driver, right? And also, not all LEDs are dimmable. That's one that a lot of people just don't understand. So if you've ever bought an LED lamp and you get it home and you try to dim it, you're like, why aren't these dimming? It may be because you bought an LED lamp that wasn't actually dimmable. It has to say dimmable on the package. Now, many halogen lamps can be replaced with LEDs, but keep in mind, not all LED halogen lamps work on dimmable circuits. So you will want to understand what that means, and you're going to learn about that just in a little bit. But at any rate, when upgrading to an LED solution, make sure the LED replacement lamp is dimmable if you require dimming. You've got to confirm the voltage, whether it's 12, 24, 120, 277 volt. You also have to confirm the base style and type, the color temperature required, and determine what lumen output is needed. In a lot of cases like ours, you can go to EiKO.com, click on resources. You can see all the different types of base and shapes that are available there. Now, the classic glass light bulb shape is referred to as an A lamp, and it has been the most commonly used type for general lighting service applications, which we refer to as GLS. Now, these are commonly used in residential applications. Also, the BR lamp is also very common in these type of applications. Now, most BR lamps and A lamps have that screw-in base, but there's also a GU24 twist lock base, which was commonly used from about 2008 to about 2017, especially in California, because it provided compliance to the 2008 California Energy Commission under Title 24, which required high efficiency lighting on all residential remodels and new construction. The idea was that GU24, the way that it fits in, it maintains that energy efficiency of the light by preventing the occupant from using an incandescent bulb that just screws in. Now, you can easily replace A lamps and BR lamps, both screw in and twist lock, with LEDs, but when upgrading, it's important to know what lumen and wattage package that you need, what's being replaced, right? So you can determine the right LED output and the right LED lumen package. You also need to know what the base type is, the voltage, the CCT, and additionally determine if the lamps need to be dimmed, just as we talked about in the previous slides. Now, PL lamps, which stands for plug-in, these fluorescent lamps plug into a ballast. Now, due to the various bases and shapes, it can be very overwhelming to find the right LED replacement because you need to know if the existing base is a 2-pin, a 4-pin, is it a GU23, a GX23, all of that plays into effect. So with any LED replacement, it's also important to know what color temperature is required, make sure you get the right lumen output. Also, the main reason for that, you heard me say it a couple times, is that you want to make sure you get the right lumen output because too much light can cause a person in the space to get headaches because of too much light, or they can also get fatigue. And also, it's just kind of overkill and it's costly if you're recommending a really high wattage LED replacement when really you could go with a much lower one. So it's all about an energy. So with fluorescents, it's also important to know what ballast they are currently using and determine if they need a type A, B, C, or dual mode, and always confirm ballast compatibility. You can always go to EiKO.com, click on resources, or you can also refer to the spec sheet. You're going to learn about type A, B, C, and dual mode here in just a little bit. One more thing to mention regarding PL lamps. It used to be that when you use PL plug-in fluorescents, you had to match the base up to the lamp, and one lamp would only work on one base. But with LED technology, you can now use the same lamp on either of these two, for instance, G23 bases, whether it's 1 or 2. So if you look at this, there's a -1 and there's a -2 in that part number. One LED will work on both of those. That used to not be the case. So one LED lamp will fit on and work on both the GU23-1 and the G23-2. Similarly, you can use the same lamp on either of the GX23 bases, 1 or 2. You just need to make sure you confirm ballast compatibility. So just because the LED lamp fits onto that ballast does not mean that it will work with that ballast. So it's very important to understand that. Additionally, EiKO's PL Type A 4-pin lamps, they feature a plug-and-play design so you can easily use the existing ballast, the existing fluorescent ballast, as long as you first check ballast compatibility. So that PL Type A 4-pin can plug directly into those 4-pin bases that are compatible. And also, another thing to kind of keep in mind, the PL Type AB, which is a 2-pin, it replaces the G24D lamps. And although this is a 2-pin, it will actually work on 4-pin bases. But in those situations, you must bypass the ballast. The main play on this is that it's just another way to reduce skews. You know, not only do we talk about LEDs being energy efficient, but we're to a point now where we can also talk about how LEDs can also reduce skews for distribution, which is a huge savings. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about type A and B and C and dual mode here in just a little bit. But the key takeaway is that with LED technology, when it comes to plug-in solutions, you don't always have to have a specific lamp for each of these bases. One lamp could potentially work on multiple bases. Again, the type A, B, PL that we have is a 2-pin. It can actually work on a 4-pin base as well, but you have to bypass the ballast. So linear fluorescent lamps is a type of gas discharge lamp. We talked about that before. They are known for high energy efficiency, long life, and relatively low cost. And all fluorescent lamps require a ballast to regulate current and provide sufficient voltage. Now, linear fluorescent bulbs come in a wide variety of lengths and diameter and wattages and color temperatures. When replacing fluorescent lamps with LEDs, just like the previous slide, it's important to understand if the customer wants to use the existing ballast or if they want to disconnect the ballast, and more importantly, if they want a new LED driver to be integrated into the lamp or remote mounted. Again, this is referred to as type B, A, B, C, and D. We'll get to more details in just a minute, I promise. It's also important to understand if the lamps will be completely enclosed. And of course, don't forget about dimming compatibility, as you've heard me say a number of times. Now, traditionally, and I think this is the last one, HID lamps have a relatively long life, higher lumen output per watt, and of course, they are a little bit more energy efficient, higher lumen than other light sources, right? All of these basically operate the same in the fact that they need a ballast, just like a fluorescent needs a ballast. Now, some HID LED replacement lamps are referred to as corn cob. So if you ever hear corn cob, you'll go, whoa, I think I heard about this. Yes, they are called this because the yellow LEDs resemble corn kernels on a corn cob. Now, corn cob lamps are meant to provide a significant amount of light, which requires a large number of diodes. Now, since some HID fixtures also use 480 volt, it is very important that you realize that not all LED replacement lamps are suitable for 480 volt operations. That's why it's also important to know, especially in industrial applications and high bay applications, what voltage your customer is currently using. And like many others, you've got to confirm the base. Also a new one, horizontal or vertical operation. Be sure to use the appropriate lamp for the application too. You don't want to waste a bunch of light inside the fixture. The idea of an LED replacement is to put the light where you need it and to save energy. So for instance, if you don't really want, for instance, if you have like an A lamp, like this one, say this one right here, you don't necessarily want to put that into a high bay application because you'd have a lot of useless light going off to the sides. Instead, you might want to consider something like this one here because it's going to direct all that light down onto the ground. And that's a little bit more ideal for, say, a high bay application where you have, a ceiling that's 15 to 18 to 20 feet in the air. Okay. And then the other thing too is that manufacturers also produce LED lamp replacements specific for applications. So for instance, in this particular case, we have a wall pack that is an LED replacement wall pack lamp. These are meant to push the light out, and typically the LED chips are only on a part of a side. That way, when you go to plug that in, you have all the light pushing out the face of the fixture and not the back of the fixture. So again, it's just a way to be the most energy efficient as possible. So now that you know that there are just basically an LED replacement lamp solution for just nearly about every traditional lighting lamp source that's out there. It's important though, again, before just screwing in or plugging in a replacement HID or fluorescent LED replacement, there are some key questions to ask and some very important things to know. You heard me say this a number of times. What's the voltage? What's the CCT? What's the base? What's the wattage, the lumen output, horizontal or vertical operation, operating temperature, enclosed fixture, dimming and dimming compatibility, type A, B, C, or dual mode. So let's address each one of these a little bit more in detail. So what's the voltage? Well, the end user really has to answer this question for you, unless you can get it off the existing lamp, which you may be able to do. But either way, you can't take a guess at this. So what's the CCT? Well, general rule of thumb, an incandescent is probably going to be around 2,700 K, maybe 3,000. Metal halide is probably going to be around 4,000. High pressure sodium is going to be more orangey. It's probably going to be more around 2,700 K. Fluorescent really could be 3,000, 35, 4, 5,000. Just keep in mind when we say daylight, typically that's 5,000. Cool white is 4,000, and warm white is more in that 3,000 Kelvin range. It's always best to ask your customer what they would want and go over what their options are so they can make a good decision on what they think they need. So what's the base of the existing lamp you're looking for? This is another one. Ask your customer or refer to EiKO.com, click on resources, pull up those base types and have your customer pick out which one they need. You can also look at the existing lamp. Sometimes that's helpful too. And then you can match it up to the base types and figure it out from there. So what's the wattage and lumen output needed? So this can sometimes be a little tricky. So watts, of course, equals energy required, right? And lumens is the output. Now, not all manufacturers have the same lumens per watt ratings. It all depends on the entire unit, the entire fixture, the heat dissipation, the lenses used, the optics that are used, the diffusers, the semiconductors, and so on, right? So most of all, the thing to remember is LED is a directional light source, not omnidirectional. So if you're using, say, an 800 lumen incandescent, you don't necessarily need an 800 lumen LED. There is not generally a rule of thumb on what wattage to use when going to an LED, but most spec sheets will list what the LED replacement is equal to. This is kind of a good guide, so I would recommend you do, kind of refer to that. Now, generally, LED lamps can be installed in any configuration. However, it's not recommended. So horizontal versus vertical operation. The reason I say this is because We manufacture lamps meant for certain applications. And so sometimes, in some cases, you want to be able to mount that lamp in the position that it was designed to be, put in, right? So although you may say that LED lamps can be installed in any configuration, I tend to say no, they really can't, because it's really important to consider the weight of the lamp. Some of these HID LED replacements are very heavy. And you can imagine if you put them horizontally, they could start to bend and bow, and you don't want that to happen. You also have to kind of think about installation and safety accessories and fixture size and design. You also have to know a little bit about illumination needs, like light trespass, which basically means, throwing the light where you don't need it or don't want it. You don't want to deal with a lot of light trespass. So you want to make sure you specify a lamp that is specific for that typical environment. Now, most LED lamps are designed for one specific application or installation position. And the reason for this is because, we do this to make sure we're utilizing lights to their fullest extent and making sure that we're meeting light trespass guidelines and all light trespass guidelines. But also, if you don't use the appropriate lamps that are designed for an application, it could just be a lot of wasteful and not cost effective at all. And so you want to make sure you're careful of that. And then as far as installation goes for operation, the general rule of thumb for HIDs is under 80 watts. You can use those in up, down, or horizontal position. We refer to this as universal. Above 80 watts is usually going to be up or down. The lamp tends to get a little heavy at that point. And you can always refer to the spec sheet. It will tell you whether or not the lamp is recommended for universal, horizontal, vertical illumination. Now, all spec sheets have operating temperatures, and it's usually found on the first page under thermal. The reason this is important is because LEDs do not like extreme heat. They do pretty well in low temperatures, but if you get above a certain temperature, it will definitely affect the performance and the longevity. So don't just assume, like in this example, that your fixture or your lamp is going to be suitable for up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That very well may not be the case. So always check out those thermal ratings on the spec sheet. Another question is, will the LED replacement be going in an enclosed fixture? Generally, LED lamps are acceptable in enclosed fixtures, assuming items are installed or product is installed according to the operating instructions, and the environment is within the operating temperature range. So when you're specifying a lamp, don't just think about, what the temperature is today. Think about what the temperature is going to be on the hottest day of the year, and make sure that you're recommending the lamp that's appropriate for that application. You can also refer to the spec sheets for and installation manuals or the packaging. They typically will say whether or not the LED is suitable for enclosed fixtures. Now, the other thing to kind of keep in mind is suitable for enclosed fixture is a UL safety rating. It does not validate the performance for an enclosed fixtures. And keep in mind that enclosed fixtures does not equal vapor tight. Vapor tight means it is completely gasketed. A lot of times LEDs cannot go in those type of fixtures because it is too sealed up and there's not enough room for the light to, or the LED lamp to perform and to dissipate the heat like it should. All right, dimming, this is always a good one. So you must know if the LED lamp will be dimmed, because not all LED light sources are dimmable and not all work with existing dimmers. If the lamp is going to be dimmed, it's important to refer to the manufacturer's dimming guide for compatibility. You can visit EiKO.com and click on resources or refer to the spec sheet too. Now, the most important question of all when dealing with fluorescence or HID replacements is does the application require a type A, B, C, or dual mode? So why is this important? Well, not all LED lamps can work on the existing fluorescent ballast, and most HID replacement lamps have their own driver built in, so you have to disconnect the existing ballast before screwing in the replacement HID LED. Very important to know that. All right, so what's this type A, B, and C? Well, type A utilizes the existing fluorescent ballast. Think of it as like a plug and play, but you need to make sure the lamp is compatible with the existing ballast. You can go to EiKO.com and click on resources for that. Type B, on the other hand, it connects directly to line voltage, bypassing the ballast. So that means you have to basically rewire or remove the ballast. And then type C, it uses an external driver to control the lamps. similar to like a fluorescent lamp with a ballast. But again, it won't work on existing, in most cases, it won't work on existing ballast. Dual mode, on the other hand, is a combination of type A and B. So dual mode means that the LED lamp can work on that fluorescent ballast, but when the ballast fails, at that point, the lamp would continue to work, but you'd have to disconnect and or remove the ballast and do a little bit of rewiring. So let me just go through those one more time because sometimes they're a little hard to get. So type A, straight up plug and play. Take out the fluorescent lamp, replace it with an LED lamp. Just make sure that the ballast is compatible. Type B, you take out the existing lamp, you put the existing or the new LED type B in its place, but you have got to remove the existing ballast because the driver for the type B is already in the LED itself. Type C, similar thing. You have to remove the existing fluorescent lamp. You would put in the type C lamp, and then you would actually replace the ballast that's in that fixture with this driver instead. And that driver can then operate 1, 2, or 3, or 4 lamps, whatever it's rated for. And then dual mode means that you can have the plug and play feature of a type A, install that lamp, but if that ballast fails, at that point, the ballast would then need to be rewired, but you can still utilize that existing lamp that you installed. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So the key questions to ask your customer are, how old are your existing ballasts? If they are old, you probably don't want to go with a type A, right? Because a type A usually utilizes that ballast. And if that ballast is about to fail, it doesn't make any sense. And then once that ballast fails, that lamp is no good unless you're using a dual mode. Do you want a remote driver or an integral driver? Well, a remote driver means that you're probably looking at a type C. An integral driver, you're looking at a type B. And really, it kind of also goes down to dimming too. Sometimes dimming is better when you use like a type C, because then you can dim all those lamps in that fixture and just use one driver that's controlling, like I mentioned, 2, 3, or 4 lamps. So a type C is very useful for that. So it's all about what your customer needs are. The nice thing about dual mode is it's kind of the best of both worlds. Assuming your ballasts are in pretty decent shape, it would make perhaps sense to go with a dual mode lamp. And then when that ballast fails, you just have to know that you have to do some rewiring, but you can utilize an existing lamp. Now, there are a few other additional things worth mentioning that relates to LED lamp sources: single versus double-ended, shunted versus non-shunted, lamp material, NSF versus ETL, Energy Star, and selectable technology. So let's get going with the tombstones and the shunted or the single versus double-ended. All right, so we already talked about tombstones in a previous training. But with tombstones, there are shunted and there are non-shunted tombstones. Now, the difference between the two is how the electrical current flows through the fixture. You can see that shunted sockets have the live and neutral wires together, creating one circuit, while non-shunted sockets have live and neutral wires that are not joined, and they actually create 2 tracks. So when retrofitting to LED tubes, it's really helpful to know what type of tombstone is present or lamp holder is present. Typically, you would not know this unless you were the installer of the contractor. Now, typically, but not always, T8 and T5 instant start ballasts use a shunted sockets, while rapid start, program start, and dimmable ballasts typically would use non-shunted along with T12s. But that's just kind of a guide. Don't rely on that. It's also important to understand single versus double-ended power. Now, single-ended power lamps have live and neutral pins on the same side of the lamp and would typically use non-shunted lamp holders, while double-ended power lamps mean that they have live and neutral pins on the opposite ends of each lamp and typically would use shunted tombstones. What's important about this, and the thing to kind of keep in mind and take away, is that type B single-ended lamp only works on non-shunted lamp holders, but type B double-ended lamps works on both. So if you're in a situation and you don't know what type of tombstones are there or lamp holders are there, You could probably go with a type B double-ended and be in pretty good shape because it works on both. So that's the key to takeaway. Type B double-ended lamps work on both. Now, replacement LED lamps are available in different materials. Glass is very common, but it makes the lamp a bit heavier, but it's also less expensive. It's the least expensive one that's out there. Of course, when this lamp breaks, though, it can cause some major safety concerns because you've got glass shattering everywhere, right? Not maybe so great in an industrial application. Now, polycarbonate is very common with A lamps and BR lamps and even PAR lamps. And when we talk about polycarbonate or PC, that means the lamp is made out of polycarbonate material versus glass. Now, the difference between a traditional glass lamp with a PET coating and a polycarbonate lamp that is just a PC lamp, just a polycarbonate lamp, is that the PC lamp is much more resistant to breakage. So it will take a lot to break a polycarbonate or a PC lamp. But if it does break, it could splinter and crack into pieces. While a glass lamp with a PET coating, it's not as resistant to breakage, but when it does break, all of those little pieces will remain intact in an envelope. Now, the last one to mention is nano polycarbonate because it is getting to be more popular. This one here is extremely light in weight. It's actually lighter in weight than a polycarbonate. Now, the two that are listed are the biggest thing to take away here is there's a difference in the glass versus the glass with PET coating, the polycarbonate, and of course the nano polycarbonate being so lightweight. So the next one is NSF versus ETL. Now you might find some lamps and also fixtures have an NSF or ETL rating. NSF stands for National Sanitation Foundation. It sets public sanitation and certificate standards. They're often found on food prep applications. You'll see that if you're dealing with like food service or restaurants, they need that type of rating for their lamps so that if they do have a lamp that breaks, glass and so forth won't go all over the place. This also sets a standard as well as tests to the standards. The ETL is Edison Testing Laboratories, and it's just a secondary lab, but it tests to the exact same standards as NSF. There's really no functional difference between NSF or ETL. The standards are exactly the same. It's just different laboratories doing testing. So just kind of keep that in mind. Either way, we all they do the same tests. All right, Energy Star certified products primarily deal with LED replacement lamps. That's why we're talking about them in this particular presentation. And it also deals with other screw-in types of LEDs versus LED fixtures. This is why you will not see Energy Star rated fixtures. Instead, fixtures typically will meet DLC requirements. So Energy Star is just a government-backed symbol for energy efficiency. It provides a simple, credible, and unbiased information to consumers and businesses just to make sure that they're making good, informed decisions about the products they're buying. Thousands of industrial and commercial and utility, state, and local organizations, including nearly 40% of Fortune 500 companies, partner with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to deliver cost savings energy efficiency solutions that protect the climate while improving air quality and also protect public health. As a matter of fact, since 1992, Energy Star and its partners have helped American families and businesses save 5 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity, which is very impressive. Unfortunately, rumor has it, Energy Star will be going away. I don't know exactly when that will happen, but you may not and no longer see Energy Star certifications on products. All right, lastly, LED replacement lamps can also feature something that people refer to as selectable technology. And that means that the product has the ability to, for the installer to set and forget color temperature. EiKO calls this field set, as well as products with the ability to set and forget lumen or wattage output, which is referred to here at EiKO as power set. This is done by locating switches on the lamps or the fixture. As you can see, I've got a little lamp here. You can see it has 2 switches, one for wattage, one for CCT. If it features both field set and power set, there will be, of course, 2 switches, one for each. Now, products with this technology are excellent for a number of applications, and the benefits are superior because it allows the contractor to have more flexibility on the job site, fewer SKUs to manage on site, fewer SKUs taking up room in the truck. Plus, if the end user changes their mind on lumen output or CCT, it can easily be changed in the field. You don't have to wait for new products to arrive on site. Thank you. And if you would like a course completion certificate, please email me. Please note there are 2 N's in Lynette. Thank you.